Good evening. Welcome to Tone's Take, Sunday edition, where I just like to take it nice and easy as we get ready for a brand new week. Today is February 11th. It was a wonderful day. It was my daughter's third birthday. She turns 3 years old today. And it's just crazy how fast the time flies by. And so I was looking for things to talk about. I just happened to just now stumble upon this article from a website called fatherly.com. I follow this website. I get, daily updates from their newsletter in my email, in my inbox. And I found this article just very interesting right from the outset because it has to do with what we're dealing with today, racism and prejudices, and how we're seeing it in so many people today. Not just old people, but young people. And not just the men, but the women and the children. It's like Anakin. So I found this really interesting article. If you can kind of see that, now you're not going to be able to make that out. Too bad. It says new data shows how parents accidentally pass on racial prejudice to kids. So a study was done that suggests just it's not enough to avoid derogatory statements about other cultures because kids internalize your biases, even the ones you don't talk about in front of them. And so this was an article on Fatherly's website by Joshua Krish from February 9th. And I urge you, check out fatherly.com. It's a plug for them. I love to read a lot of their articles. It's been great for me being a father of two girls aged 3 and 1. I need, all the support and all the articles I can get to help keep me kind of level set. So this article says, children learn prejudice from their parents, a new study suggests, and racism hits kids whether or not they hear their dads raging about immigration, hurling invective, or dropping the odd slur. Research found that parents who harbor private, implicit biases against other races appeared to pass those along to their kids as well. The findings suggest that efforts to stamp out racism may be fruitless until adults address their own biases, and that kids may pick up on even subtle hints at prejudice. And it's not very surprising. Um, Kids from the age of 0 to 5 are like sponges. We as humans pick up on everything between the ages of 0 and 5. And depending on where you live and your environment, they can easily pick up on racial biases and things just because if they don't see, you talking with, um, if they only see you talking with like people that are white, if you're white, or if they only see you talking to people that are black or Hispanic or, Japanese or Korean or from any African country or from any country in the Middle East, that's a bias that's being built in them. It's not a negative bias. Again, if they see other people that are the same race as them, it becomes negative when they see people of the other race and maybe you're not as friendly to them, or maybe you cross the street, or maybe you clutch your bag more. It's those little things, those little cues that we don't realize we do, that could actually be impacting the next generation. So I found this interesting. So it goes on to say, our research revealed that parents are powerful vehicles of ethnic prejudice transmission towards their children, uh, not only through their explicit communications and actions, but also through their unaware and unconscious beliefs, stereotypes, and automatic behavior. So pretty much goes in line. I'm literally just reading this article now, so it's interesting to see that their research pretty much found what I kind of knew. That's not to say kids aren't sort of racist all by themselves. Studies have identified prejudice in children as young as 3 years old, and even infants seem to prefer faces that match their own ethnicities and people who speak their own languages. And that's not uncommon and it's not unreasonable for that to happen. If you come out of the womb and you see a certain thing, it's like ducks and birds imprinting on the first thing they see. They feel that's mama. That's what's going to provide for me. So if I stick with, something that looks like me or something that looks like my mama, um, that's where I'm going to feel my most comfort. So that makes complete sense to me. So the question. Let me make sure I'm picking up here. Um, that's not to say. Yeah, okay, I read that part. Experts agree that an ethnicity bias clearly emerges at around 3 years of age. So, for my oldest daughter, who has just turned 3, this is good for me because now I need to read this and see exactly what I need to do to kind of nip those biases in the bud. Um, so it emerges around 3 years of age, peaks in 8 year olds, and then it actually gradually declines, which is interesting. The question is how much we should be blaming parents for this bias. A handful of studies have noted similarities between the racial attitudes of parents and children, while others have found only weak correlations between racist parents and kids who display ethnic bias. This ambiguity prompted Karras and colleagues to investigate how parents' implicit and explicit biases impact their children, with a large sample of 318 white kids between the ages of 3 and 9. Karras and his team first asked each parent to respond to 20 statements about ethnic prejudice. Immigrants take our jobs, and these are, some of the ethnic prejudices. Immigrants take our jobs. Immigrants transmit values not required in our country. Then the researchers showed each child photographs of 6 children from different ethnic groups and asked them to indicate which child he or she would like to be and which child he or she would like to invite over for a playdate. This measured each child's level of implicit bias. Finally, they asked the children to assign adjectives to each photograph, some positive, such as nice, good, clean, and some decidedly negative, such as dirty, stupid, and bad. This measured each child's level of explicit bias. So the researchers found that parents who displayed high levels of prejudice were significantly more likely to have children who displayed explicit and implicit bias. Our findings suggest that children's prejudice may be rooted in the automatic behavior and implicit social influence processes enacted by their significant adults, more than in what parents explicitly think and likely say about ethnically different people to their children. For policymakers, the takeaway is that interventions to prevent bias need to include both parents and children. Ethnic bias should be contrasted through prevention programs on children and adults, rather than with interventions on ethnically biased children. And this is true. A lot of times we have programs in school that are in place to try to help children be more accepting of other races or other cultures or other ethnicities, and the students will take part in these programs. They hear these things in their classrooms through whatever the teacher might be teaching, but then they go home, and the parents are probably spewing their racist, bigoted crap all around the child. So everything that the school is trying to do is completely undone. So, for parents, the findings have more personal implications. Besides taking pains to avoid explicitly derogatory statements, the study suggests parents who aspire to raise tolerant children need to ensure that they aren't subtly hinting at their biases in ways that kids can internalize. Parents can accomplish this by not using us versus them expressions, which I'm not sure what an us versus them expression is, so now I'm going to have to actually research that myself. or by smaller things such as showing themselves open to talking about other cultures and countries, watching TV and movies from other countries, eating food from other parts of the world. And that's actually a pretty good challenge that we should take on. That I think I'm going to talk to my wife even about taking on, because when you think about it, that's that's an optimum way that implicit biases are built in. Um, we don't talk about other cultures in our house. As a matter of fact, when we were at this store called Lakeshore Learning today, we were kind of just looking at a lot of the different toys, and I did notice there was like a set of figurines that had people from like all different parts of the world. And I thought it was pretty cool, and I thought about getting it for my daughter, and I don't know why I didn't. But now, in hindsight, I think I should have. And I should also note at the store that they had like these little family sets, and they had, the family sets had a mother, a father, a brother, a sister, and then a baby. And I found it interesting because they had family sets for each different race, and they all had the same amount of people. They all had the same family breakdown, and they had one for African American, for Caucasian, for Hispanic, and for Asian. And Asian is a huge group. African American is a huge group. Caucasian is a huge group. Hispanic is a huge group. There are subsects of Hispanics. There are subsets of Caucasians, subsets of African Americans, and a huge variety of subsets of Asians. Um, but I thought that was a good, a good toy that we could give for our daughter. But I want to think about ways to actually expose my children to other cultures this year. We obviously have a budget, so we're not going to be traveling to these other countries. Um, but I like, watching TV and movies from other countries, or eating food from other parts of the world. My wife is from Trinidad, and we often go back to her country that she's mainly lived in Canada. And Toronto, I will tell you, is just so full of culture, people from just all over the world. It is a great place to live. I wish we could live in Toronto, just because of how beautiful, and just when you talk about melting pot, Toronto really is a melting pot. I think New York City to some extent is, but if you really want to experience a melting pot of culture and ethnicity, check out Toronto, because it is just chock full of ethnicity. But yeah, I gotta figure out how to do this, because it's it's one thing to live in a world where we're trying to fight against racism and classism and sexism and all these things. But it's another to help to educate your children when they're young, and to build something in them, so that they can then understand why there even might be biases, how to not be biased, and then how to see where those biases are, and maybe understand where they come from, and to be able to process them, and to be able to accept others and help others even deal with those biases by being understanding. Like, it would be awesome if my daughters go off to school, and they hear someone saying something about a group of people or a certain kid, and they're able to actually explain, well, hey, this person is like this because ABCD. Like, how awesome would that be? And that's the goal, right, of being a parent. So I don't want to go too far off, but I think that's a great idea. And I like to know, if other people have other ideas, how can we stop the passing of these prejudices? Um, Obviously, there are some people who decidedly want to continue to pass them down. They believe in things like certain race supremacy, or even certain gender supremacy, and so it'll be hard to overcome those people. But game theory suggests that those people are going to dwindle as long as we continue to fight the good fight. I don't agree with um, what's the word? Kind of pushing them into a corner and making it seem like they're not a part of society because they are, and I think they need help. I'm talking about racial supremacists and gender and ethnic supremacists. If we can somehow pull them back into the conversation to make them feel like they aren't being pushed out, then that would be great. But I truly do believe that within the next 50 years, even my hope, my hope is that we'll see a lot less just racism and discrimination. But it comes from doing things like this. It comes from being conscious of our own implicit biases and working um, actually, be proactive to fight against those things. So I want to get your thoughts. So finally, the last piece of this, it says education to diversity is key for overcoming prejudice by transmitting the importance of endorsing universal values of humanity, tolerance, and benevolence in our lives. So that's a great way to end. Um, Transmit importance of universal values. We're all humans. We are all humans. We all bleed the same red blood. We all live on this one planet, which we all got to see from the rear view camera of Elon Musk's Tesla. We're all here on one planet. There's no reason for us to be fighting over it. We should be able to work together to achieve great things. We should be tolerant of each other, so tolerance, and then benevolence. We should be working to help those who are in lesser, worse situations than us. We should all be striving to move forward together as a human species. We didn't get this far, by killing each other. Well, yeah, we did, but I don't think we got this far as humans in terms of, actually getting to a point where we're able to do the great things we are by fighting all the time. Yes, there have been some, countries that have warred against each other and some societies that have, but overall, we are a loving people, and I think we need to just stay that way. We need to stay that way, and we need to, just minimize the war, minimize the hate, and start to be more accepting. Let's get rid of the racial biases. Let's get rid of the unconscious biases by consciously actually fighting them and ensuring that they don't make it into the next generation. Wouldn't it be great if there was a generation that had no idea what the word racism meant? I mean, sure, they know that there are different races, but they wouldn't know what it means to be racist. They wouldn't know what it means to be sexist or classist. We could all just be one, working together to create a better world for the future. So that's all I've got to talk about today. Again, I literally just found that article. I had no idea what I was going to talk about until I saw the headline for that. I thought it was a great way to start the week. So I'm sure tomorrow I'll be, back on the hunt for, whatever, some regular news or whatever. Who knows? Who knows? I'm still trying to decide what the heck is going to happen with this blog. But again, I thank you for watching and for listening, and I would love your thoughts on these matters. So leave me a comment, give it a thumbs up, subscribe, share it with your friends, and let's just make the world a better place. All right. So that's all I've got for you today, and I will see you all tomorrow. Peace out. Bye.